Guys, and welcome to a very special episode of Dude, I Love My Ride, because behind me is my grandfather's 1972 Chevy El Camino Custom 400. That number 400 is pretty much everything you need to know about this El Camino, because it means that this one has a 402 cubic inch V8. It's a 6.6 liter with a 4-barrel carb up top, and it makes 240 horsepower and 345 pound-feet of torque. It's hooked up, in this case, to a 3-speed automatic transmission. But what's actually kind of interesting is that in 1971, this exact same engine made 300 horsepower. Why is that? Well, in 1972, GM switched their rating system from the gross horsepower figure to the SAE net horsepower figure, which just means that basically 240 is how much horsepower this one makes when it's actually in the car. Tim, you found this car. How'd you find it?
Yeah, it was a pretty cool story. My youngest son, Max, used to have a friend that lived, 5 or 6 miles away. And every once in a while he would call up, "Hey Dad, I need a ride." So I'd go down there and pick him up, and every time I'd pick him up, I'd see this old El Camino sitting out in the bushes in this lady's yard. And I always wondered, what's it doing there? Because it never moved for 5 years. I'd drive by that thing. And so one day, I had just sold my 1968 Camaro. And I was kind of hankering for a new project. And I thought, oh, that'd be perfect if I get that thing for cheap. Lo and behold, one day she's sitting out there on her porch in her rocking chair. And I thought, okay, I'm going to stop. And I go up to the fence and I'm like, hello. And she, invited me in, and I went up there and said, "How you doing? My name's Tim, blah, blah, blah." And she, "What's the story on that old El Camino out there?" "Oh, that was my husband's car. He's been gone for a while now, and it's just been sitting there." And so, I asked if it was for sale, and she pretty abruptly said, no, I'm not ready to sell that yet. I'm just not ready. And she just was holding on for a nostalgic thing.
Yeah.
So I gave her my card and said, hey, well, if you ever want to sell it, give me a call. I'd love to turn it into a project and bring it back to its original glory. And that was that.
The Chevy story actually begins with Ford in Australia in the 1930s. Famously, the wife of an Australian farmer sent a letter to Ford asking for, quote, a vehicle that could take you to church on Sundays and carry pigs to the market on Mondays. Ford responded to this letter by creating the first coupe utility, or ute, the Ford Falcon, in 1934. Thanks to Ford's success with the Falcon, GM decided to enter the coupe utility game under their Australian subsidiary Holden in 1935. The coupe utility wouldn't make its way to the US until 1957 when Ford released the Ranchero. 1 year later, the El Camino made its debut in the US, based on the platform from the full-size Chevy station wagon. Chevy stopped production on the El Camino after just 1 year. The El Camino outsold the Ranchero in 1959, but sales plummeted in 1960 by almost a third, so Chevy discontinued the brand new model. However, in 1964, the El Camino made its return. This time, the El Camino was based on the iconic Chevelle, which was easy to see given the two looked nearly identical from the A-pillar forwards. Production would continue all the way up until 1987 from this point.
I think it must have been 2.5 or 3 years later when the phone rang. I answered the phone and there was a little old lady, Betty. Hello, Tim, this is Betty. Betty? I didn't know who she was.
Yeah.
Do you remember me? I have the old El Camino. Oh my God. Yeah, I remember you. That was like 3 years ago. Yeah, well, I've been thinking about it. I kept your card on my refrigerator this week. She said, I think I'm ready to sell. And I was like, oh my gosh. Because I didn't have the money at the time now because I was doing something else.
Yeah.
I thought maybe Dad would want to do it because he was in between projects, so to speak.
Yeah.
Dad said, well, gee, yeah, that sounds cool. And I always liked the El Camino. Let's talk to her about it. So I went and looked at it, and I got to go see it in the yard. As much of a barn find as I could imagine.
Yeah.
Without the barn.
Like a field find.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All the tires were flat.
Yep.
Weeds were growing over it. The paint was pretty tired.
Yeah.
There was a couple little body, scratch here, a ding there.
Yeah,
nothing major. It was solid. It was good. We're here in the high desert, so there was no rust. And she said it'd been sitting there for at least 8 years.
And it didn't
Last
run.
time they drove it, they went to get firewood up on Toll Road. Then they parked it, and that was that. I took pictures and texted them to him or emailed him or something, and he thought, yeah, let's do it.
Nice.
What should we offer? I go, I don't know. I have no idea. I know what it'll be worth when we're done.
Yeah.
I said, let's offer her like $2,500.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, let's do it. I just said, well, would you take $2,500? And, total silence, crickets. It was like,
yeah.
And I didn't know if she was offended but she was just thinking about it. And after about 30 seconds, she said, you know what? Yeah, I'll take that. Tow truck met us there, and we towed it over to my dad's house.
And then began the restoration process, I guess.
Dad got busy on the internet with collecting parts.
In 1968, Chevy unveiled the third generation El Camino. The Super Sport, or SS versions of which packed a 396 cubic inch V8 that made well over 300 horsepower, or the big block 454 cubic inch V8 that made over 400 horsepower. The El Camino 400, my grandpa's car, was the largest engine you could get in an El Camino besides the SS models. As such, the 400 is somewhat of a sleeper. They're also a popular choice for people looking to make an SS clone, so finding an original 400 is relatively hard to do.
Luckily, we knew a mechanic who was a Chevy freak.
There you go.
He was a Chevelle guy.
Which
an
El Camino basically is a Chevelle.
So he took it, and Dad told him what he wanted to do. He wanted to keep the original color.
Yep. Which is what, cream yellow? Is that
cream yellow?
Cream yellow. It's a great color.
Vinyl top. He wanted to just keep everything stock, except he wanted to add a few little custom touches.
He did an SS hood, right?
Yeah.
That was a big thing.
Cowl induction hood.
Yeah, it looks mean, especially from the driver's seat here, kind of looking over it. It looks really cool.
Yeah, more aggressive.
He did, the wheels are different. He got those American Racing. They're period correct, but they're not necessarily what was on the car first, right?
Right.
In here, he did a lot of stuff too. I mean,
There was a bench seat.
He did buckets.
The bench seat was a little
bumpity.
Yeah.
Kind of squishy, maybe.
Yeah, he wanted a little more
substance.
Support, Yeah. So we got these buckets with the center console.
And the center console's nice.
Yeah, it all works.
Yeah, it works. He put in power windows.
Yeah.
Which work really well.
And the wind wings are still here.
Yep.
AC for Nevada heat.
Yeah, and it blows cold here. You can hear that it blows. You can't tell that it blows cold, but it does blow cold.
Yep, it's nice.
Which it's like 95 degrees today in Reno, so that's really nice to have.
Yeah. Got the original Frigidaire compressor
under the hood.
There.
You can see it. But basically, he built this to be a pretty close to original, like little custom touches driver. Which is what it is, and it's really clean.
It's not a 100-point show car. It's a fun, clean driver. That's original. So after we got it done, Dad and I were out cruising, and we were down on the south end of town. I said, hey, Dad, you know what we have to do? And he looks at me, what? We got to go see if Betty's sitting out on her porch, because it was the next summer.
Yeah.
It was 1 year.
So that's a pretty quick
And he looked at me with a gleam in his eye. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So we cruised down there, and it was in the afternoon, and sure enough, there she was on the porch.
Sitting in a little chair.
Same place.
Yeah.
And she looked out and immediately knew it was us. And she hadn't seen the car since.
Yeah.
Since
And
we
I can
bought
imagine it looked pretty different.
She was out of that rocker and down to the fence pretty quick.
Nice.
All the way saying, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. It looks just like it did when it was new.